All right, we are now going to be beginning the Word. We're on Module 1, but we are on Session 1.2. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be doing an additional project, and this is basically going to be talking about formatting a document. So I am already on my project that I opened in MindTap directly from Blackboard. I'm going to click on the 1.1 document. I actually think I've already got that open. I do, but it opened on another screen, so let me slide it over here. I have more than one screen. Sometimes it opens on a different screen. All right, so this is the document that we are actually going to be starting with, and it wants us to change the name. But I do want you to be aware that up here on the title bar, it still has my name up here. When you go to submit it, it's going to want your name attached to it. So part of me says that we don't want to change the name to it at all, but they may have us make some different naming conventions, and I want to make sure that we don't get those confused if you're dealing with more than one document. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a file save as, and of course I'm going to browse to go to my OST 136 class, and then this semester's class. All right, I'm going to go into Module 1. All right, and this particular one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in. They're telling us to name it Flyer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in front of my name, and I'm going to put in the word Flyer and a period. And that way, how about if I do an underscore? There we go. That way it kind of looks like the rest of it. And that way when I go in to submit it, I can just take out the word Flyer. If that's the document that they would have us to submit, then everything will be good from there. Okay? I hope you understand where I'm going with that. Okay, so I'm going to click Save because all I've done is put that document in the correct folder. And I've named it up here. You can see it's got Flyer with my name behind it. It should say Flyer with your name behind it. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start. I am on WD 1-33. Okay, this goes opening an existing document. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We want to verify that the document that is displayed in the print layout. So we're going to go to Layout. Okay, actually, let's go to View. There we go. It's in the print layout. The other thing we want to make sure is that we are zoomed to 120%. So let's click on this, double click it, and put in 120, and click OK. And you can see it gets larger. So we're at 120 here, but you can also look in this bottom right-hand corner and see that you have zoomed to 120% as well. You want to make sure also that your non-printing characters and your ruler are displayed. Now, looking at my document right here, my ruler is not displayed and neither are my non-printing characters. So I'm going to stay here in View because what I want to do, I want to click Ruler here, and you can see that they appear. And then I'm going to go back to Home, and I'm going to click my non-printing characters. All right, so now we've gotten everything ready to start working on our document. All right, so at this point, our document is really simple. By the time that it is finished, it's going to look more like the document that you see over on the very opening page of Session 1.2, that visual overview called Formatting a Document. It'll look more like that. All right, so I flipped over to the next page of my textbook. And what we want to do is we want to use the editor pane. So on the ribbon, we want to go to the File tab, okay, which takes us to the Backstage view. We want to go to Options. And when we go to Options, what we want to do is this opens, and you can use the dialog box to change a variety of settings within Word. But in the left-hand pane, we want to click Proofing. So we're going to click Proofing. And note that there are 3 selected options when correcting spelling and grammar in the Word section. Okay, when correcting spelling in the Microsoft Office program. Okay, is that one, and then when correct spelling and grammar in Word. That's the one that we're looking at. And then this other option would be exceptions for that. Okay, so now when correcting spelling and grammar in Word, which is this part right here, you want to click the settings button. So we're going to go to the settings button, and here you can control the different types of grammar errors that it checks for, and you can see there are quite a few that are listed there. All of the boxes in the grammar section are selected by default, which is exactly what you want. So here you have grammar written right here, and by default every one of those are clicked, and that is what you want. Now we want to scroll down in the grammar section dialog box to display clarity and consciousness settings, which is the very next section once you pass the grammar section. And we want to, after you see that, by default there are no nominalizations and wordiness selected. Okay, so we're going to take over nominalizations. Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry, it says by default only nominalizations and wordiness are selected. So those two are selected. And then what we want to do, we want to click cancel to close the grammar settings, and we want to return to the Word Options dialog box, which is right here. Okay, and now what we want to do is you want to note that the results of the spelling and grammar checker are sometimes very hard to predict. Okay, in some Word documents, it'll redo a misused word or duplicate punctuation as an errors, and sometimes it doesn't do that. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to click the Recheck Document button. Let me make sure, which is located right here, Recheck Document. Okay, and then it comes up with this operation resets the spelling checker so that Word will recheck words and grammar we previously checked and chose to ignore. You want to continue, and the answer to that will be yes, we do. Now the Word Options dialog box, and we want to click OK, and we return back to our document. Now we're ready to check to see if the document's spelling and grammar, and you can see here that we've got some red wavy lines, and we've got some double blue lines that have been highlighted here. Okay, so now to check the document for spelling and grammatical errors, what we want to do, we want to press Control Home, and if you will recall, that takes us to the very beginning of the document, which that's exactly where we are. All right, and then we want to move the insertion point to the beginning of the document to the left of the W in We, and that's where it already is. Now on the ribbon, we want to go to the Review tab. So find the Review tab, and the ribbon changes to display those reviewing options. Now what we want to do in the proofing group, we want to go in and we want to check the document. All right, so we're going to look here, and we're going to actually go in and check the document. Now at the editor pane, if you notice, this proofing came up on the right hand side. And what happens is it indicates that there are some spelling errors in there. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to fix these errors. So near the top of this editor pane, you want to click. It says for results, but we're not, it just took me to the next one. So what we want to do here, so we want to change this one. We went to protect. All right, and if you'll notice, it has this has two periods at the end of the word, so we're going to click one of those. And then it's got us on contact instead of condact, so we want to go to contact, which we're going to click on that, and it changes that. And then we also have Alzacar. All right, so with Alzacar, we don't want to make that change because we know that is correct. All right, So we want to resume. We want to click ignore all. All right, so now we can see that spelling and grammar check is complete. All right, and we noticed that even though we ignored Alzacar, we took it off because we know that even if we were to send this through an electronic means, an email or something like that, Word would put in that the red wavy line, and we don't want it to do that. We want it to look like it is correct because it is. All right. All right, so let's see what else we have here. We want to proofread the document. We want to review the document text for any remaining errors, okay? So what we did was we basically did a spelling and grammar check, but sometimes there are things in here that it does not pick up that is important for us to make a change on. All right, so it says we need your help to protect our city's drinking water. That is correct. Then it says join a citizen advisory panel and let your voice be heard. Citizen advisory panel should all be in, or should begin with a capital letter because it is it's the word I'm looking for. That is a proper noun. So the P in panel should also be capitalized. So I'm going to click to the right of that, backspace, capital P. So now that is correct. Provide input on upcoming water resource projects. All community members are welcome. Contact David Alzacar at water@portland.cengage.com today. All right. What we're going to do here, we're going to change David Alzacar to our name. What I mean by that is I'm going to put in Carol Ingalls, and you are going to put in your first and last name. All right. All right. So I'm actually going to stop there. Actually, what I'm going to do next, it says changing the page orientation, because this is actually pretty easy to do. So what I want to do is I want to change the document zoom level to one page. So that's going to go to view, and we're going to click one page. So now you can see the entire page there. And then on the ribbon, we want to go to the layout tab. So we go to layout, and you can have it set up in two different ways. All right. In the page setup, here you have the orientation. There are two orientations you can have each. This is called portrait, which is up and down, and then you can also have landscape, which is where the page is turned and is across. Now in the page setup group, what we want to do is we want to click on the margins. So we go to page setup, all right, which is again located right here, and we want to go to the margins group, and we want to go to the narrow option. And so here we talked about earlier that the normal margins for a document is 1 inch on every side. So a narrow margin is going to make it smaller than that. And so what it is now, that's going to be a 1/2 inch on each side. So I'm going to click on that. Now the margins have shrunk from 1 inch to a 1/2 inch all the way around that document. All right, at this point, I am going to stop the video. I'm going to click my save button because I've already got it named to make sure that it continues to be saved at the point that we now have it. All right, I will see you back in the next video. Thanks, guys.